Hello and welcome everybody, this is Roland from graphicinmotion.com, and in this tutorial I will show you how to customize my Boombox audio visualizer After Effects template. So let's take a quick look at the content of the template. There are two different After Effects projects included, and the first one, the E3D project here, requires Element 3D. It's a plugin by Videocopilot. And the second version requires Element 3D and Optical Flares. Optical Flares is also a plugin by Videocopilot. So depending on which plugins you have, you choose the version that you want to use. So now let's get started with the customization in After Effects. When you open up the project for the first time, maybe the Boombox will not be visible. And to relink the Boombox to Element 3D, you first of all enter the setup and render composition. Then you choose the Element 3D Boombox layer right here, and then in your effect controls panel you go to Scene Setup, and this will launch the options to Element 3D. And here you see Element 3D will tell you that it detected a missing file. Would you like to relink them now? Yes, we want to relink them, and this is the file that we want to relink. So select it, go to Locate, then you go to your project folder, Footage, Assets, 3D Model, and choose this Boombox Element 3D Cinema 4D file. Click OK. And then you see that the Boombox is now visible. So this is the first really cool feature of this audio visualizer, that a fully functional 3D model of a ghettoblaster is included, including all the textures as you can see. So now you can click OK and go back to After Effects, and it will load the Boombox. So we have to do this process one more time with the Element 3D triangle layer. So let's do the same. Let's go to the setup and then relink this one as well. And you see in this case, Element 3D doesn't tell us that it is missing a file, but it's actually not here. So what you can do then is right click and go to Replace Model. And then we navigate to this folder again and choose the triangle. Open it up, there it is, and click OK. Good, so far so good. Now we can start the customization process. The most important thing is, of course, to import an audio because it's an audio visualizer. So let's go to File and choose Import File. And I will use one of my MP3s here, and then we move to this audio composition. It's important that you put your audio into this audio composition. So if it's not already open in the timeline here, you can find it here in the placeholder folder. Here are all these compositions with placeholders. Let's open up the audio composition and drag in our audio file. Make sure that it lines up at the beginning of this composition. The next step is to determine the length of our visualization. The template is built for audio tracks up to 10 minutes, and now we will set up how long it will be. So you see that this is a quite short track. It's only approximately 1 minute and 15 seconds long. So let's select our track. Let's press O on the keyboard to move our time indicator to the end of our audio track. And now with this, let's go to the scene, the setup and render composition, and you see now the time indicator is on the same time code here. Now let's take a look how we can set this up. In the end we have an animation, and if we select the Boombox control layer and press U, you will see two keyframes, and this is actually the animation where the Boombox approaches the camera and then it fades to black and then it blends in the end title here. So of course you want to line this up to the end of your audio. So you see in my case it's already lined up, but I will show you how to do that. So let's say if you want this to happen a little bit later, then you can just choose these two keyframes, bring them to your time indicator wherever you want this to start at the end of your audio, and then you make sure that this composition here, the end title, the in point here should line up with the first keyframe of this animation, and then this will work. And then there is another thing that we have to do, and this is we have to extend the Boombox layer here until the second keyframe. So this is important, because otherwise it will disappear. So now you have this nice animation. The Boombox will be visible until the end, and then it transitions to black and transitions to the end title. Okay, so our end animation is now working. Now we can set up the out point of our work area, and the output of the work area determines how long the title will be visible. So let's say I want this to be visible for about 5 seconds. Now the animation ends at 1 minute and 13 seconds. So let's say I want this to end at 1 minute and 18 seconds. So I put my cursor here, my time indicator, and then I press N on my keyboard to extend the work area until that point. And this will now be the area that After Effects will later export. Now let's talk a little bit about the performance of this template. So the Boombox is quite a detailed model, and this of course requires some power on the graphics card and on the CPU. And if you face any problems with performance while customizing it, then I would recommend that you go to the Element 3D Boombox layer, and right at the bottom there is this render mode, and you can set this to preview, and this will now speed up a preview. But don't forget to change it back to full render before you export it again. Okay, now let's set up our audio reaction. As you can see, the audio spectrums are already reacting to our audio, so you do not have to do anything here. But we have to extract some data from our audio to drive other reactions. And to do that, we select the audio layer, and you see in the effect controls panel on the audio layer there is a high and low pass effect. We need the high frequency values and we need the low frequency values. You see that we have two layers here. And to extract the high frequency values, we select this layer. Then we enable the high-low pass by clicking on this little effects here. And then you can set up your frequency where you want to cut it off. So I guess that you are a music producer, so you probably know way more about that than I do. In my case, I just chose 2000 Hertz as the high pass frequency. And with this selected and with the effect activated, let's make sure that we bring our time indicator to frame 0. Then go to animation, make sure that the audio layer is still selected, go to animation, go to keyframe assistant, and then choose convert audio to keyframes. And now After Effects will create a layer with an audio amplitude, and you see that it creates the layer only within the work area. So make sure that you set up the work area correctly before you do that step. Now let's press U on our keyboard to reveal the keyframes that After Effects created. And you see it created 3 channels, and I do not need the first 2, so I just remove them, and I only care about both channels here. And now we can go into our graph editor, this little icon here. Now let me turn this off here. And with our slider selected, let's go to the graph editor and let's zoom into our curve that we have. And you see these are the high frequencies. And these high frequencies now create values. And to use these values, we have to work on them a little bit. So let's select the slider here, and this will select all the keyframes. Now we will scale this up because we want the peaks of these values to reach approximately 100 units. And this may be totally different with your audio depending on your frequencies and depending how you set this up. So maybe you have to scale it up, maybe you even have to scale it down. It really depends on your audio, but in most cases you have to scale it up. So let's select this little rectangle, this white one, and just drag up with your mouse. And you see on the left side of the timeline there are these units, and I want these to reach 100. So let's go to 100. Okay, you see here is 100, and I want my highest peaks here to be definitely above that, so probably something like that. You see now my peaks are near 100, some are a little bit above it. That's perfectly fine. Okay, now let's take a look at the bottom here. The bottom values here are around 5. I will just take this rectangle and scale this down a bit so that I get the bottom values also down to 0, or some of them can also be below 0. That's absolutely no problem. Something like this is fine. Now let's zoom in and let's see what we have. You see the range now is between approximately -5 and something like 105. That's perfect. Now I want to smooth out this curve a little bit because this will create a little bit nicer movements in our reactions. And to do that, with all the keyframes still selected, we will go to Windows and we will go to our smoother. And the smoother is right here. So let's activate this. And then you see here this panel. Let's set the tolerance to 2 and then just click apply. And then After Effects will convert these keyframes to easy ease keyframes. But now I don't like the direction of these handles. So let's just, with all selected, let's just press this button here, the easy ease button. And you see now this will flatten these handles, and now we have a really nice and smooth curve that will drive now some animations in this visualizer. Now let's go out of the graph editor. Now we have to copy these keyframes to our high frequency layer. So let's select the high frequency layer. Let's press U to make the keyframes visible that are already here. These are just placeholder keyframes, so please just remove them. Select the layer, the slider here, and then just remove it by clicking this stopwatch icon. Now let's make sure to bring our time indicator on frame 0. Select our slider that we created, press Ctrl C to copy the keyframes, select the slider on your high frequency layer, press Ctrl V to paste it in, and now we can just delete the audio amplitude because we don't need this anymore. And now we have to do the same for the low frequencies. So I will make this a little bit faster now. Select the audio layer, then change the high-low pass to low pass, and select the frequency where you want to cut off the high frequencies. I will use 125 Hz. Then with this selected, I will choose the audio layer, go to animation, keyframe assistant, convert audio to keyframes. Again, I will press U, delete the first 2 here and select my both channel slider. Again, go to my graph editor and zoom in here. You see this looks a little bit different. I select all my keyframes and I start to drag them up until I reach 100 units. Right here, this should be really fine. And let's see how the bottom looks. This is pretty good, so I will just drag them down a tiny bit, something like that. Then smooth them, apply the smoother, and then just press easy ease, and I am done. So let's select the low frequency layer here, the blue one, press U on the keyframe, delete the placeholder keyframes, select the newly created ones, press Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and we are done. Now the audio reaction is set up and everything will nicely react to your audio. So as a next step in the customization process, I want to show you how we can control the rotations that you probably saw in the preview video. So if we go to our Boombox control layer, this green one here, and press U on the keyboard again, then you will see that we have this rotation here in the beginning. It's on the Y rotation. So if we take a look here at that, you see that in the beginning, the rotation is happening one time. And then if we go to our graph editor and take a look at this graph, you see that in a certain interval, the rotation is repeating. And you can set up this interval by yourself. And let me show you how this works. So let me take a look at my waveform here, and I will zoom in here a little bit. And I could now choose, for example, to make my interval about 10 seconds long. So I move to 10 seconds, my time indicator, and then I shift this keyframe to my time indicator. If you hold down Shift, then it will snap. And if I go to the graph editor now, you see now the interval of these repeating rotations is smaller. And now it will rotate one time each 10 seconds. So at 10 seconds, at 20 seconds, at 30 seconds, and so on. If you don't want these rotations, then it's a very easy solution as well. You just go to the Y rotation value, press E twice, so EE, that's important, and then you just turn off the expression. If you turn off the expression and then you go to the graph editor, you see we only have the rotation one time in the beginning, and then it will not repeat anymore. But actually I like these rotations, so I will just turn on this repeat expression again. So the next step of the customization is to put in your titles. You see that we have titles in the background, we have titles actually on our boombox here, and for this part I will increase the render quality because otherwise we cannot nearly see what we are doing. So let me quickly change this. And you see that we have a logo on the front of this boombox, and we also have a logo at the back, and this is visible here in the beginning when it's rotating. So let me take a quick look here, where you can see the logo on the back right here. And to customize these, we have two placeholders. We have the logo front placeholder right here and the logo back placeholder. Here you can put in a logo, a graphic, a title, whatever you want, even a video if you want. So let's go to logo front and let's import a logo file quickly. I go to import file and I will navigate to my logo folder. I will import two kind of logos and I will put this in here on top of the placeholder. This is the logo front. So let's scale it down and make it approximately as big as this placeholder logo, something like that. And I turn off the placeholder. Then I go to the logo back, choose my other logo, put it also on top here and scale it down a bit, something like that. And then I will just disable the placeholder. And if we go now to our setup and render composition, you will see that the logo now updates and will be visible on our Boombox, which is pretty cool. So the next title that you can actually customize is right up here, and it's a little bit hard to see. Here, the artist name and song title. To customize this, enter this composition here that's called artist name song title. You can find all of these compositions right here in the placeholders as well. This is just a text layer, so double click and enter your text. You can of course use your font, your coloring, whatever you want. And this will then show up here. Another text layer that we can customize is this triangle text here. So let's go to the triangle text layer. It's called triangle title, and solo it for a moment. And you will see this is just this text running around this triangle. I will increase the resolution to make this more obvious. And to customize it, you just double click and then you enter your title. So let's say your artist name, your track name. Okay. Now let's just copy this a few times. So let's paste it in with Ctrl C and Ctrl V. And now let's take a look. Oops. How this looks like. And you see that actually it's not bad, but there is a tiny gap here. So with this layer selected, I can now change again the tracking of my text to close that. And now I have a nicely closed text chain that will animate along this triangle. Then the next title is a bit of a special title, and this is the background title. So let's quickly solo the background layer just to see what we are doing here. And you see that this is actually animating. So to customize this title here, let's go to the background title composition, and this is here. So let's enter this. Now, if you select the text layer, you see that the text itself is only this middle part here, and these duplicates here are created by using a reptile effect. So let's disable the reptile effect for a moment, just that we see what's happening here. And now I want to update this title. So let's say I want to put in here boom and box, and I will just use the layout that I created here. The first part has a fill color and the second part has just an outline. So let's see. I want to make sure that this is not scaled up vertically, so I will set this to 100. But now it's a little bit too small, so I want it to increase the size here a little bit. So this looks better if the text is really filling out the height of this composition. So make sure that your title is not too small. Something like that is fine. Now, when you're ready with the customization of your title, then make sure that it's aligned correctly. And therefore we go to the Align tab here and align it horizontally and vertically. And now you can enable the reptile effect again. Now you see it's not repeating perfectly. You see these areas here where the text is cut off, we want to get rid of these. And the easiest way to get rid of this is to change the tracking of our text. So let's increase the tracking a little bit until these overlaps are gone, like that. This is perfect. And now if you go to the setup and render composition, you see the text will update, and now I have this seamless background with my title. Okay, so let's unsolo that and let's move on with the customization. The last title that we can edit is the end title. I already showed you this. So let's go to the end title composition. It's already open here. Here you have a text layer. You can put in title, as I said, graphic, whatever you want. You can also put in your logo. So let's just use the logo here, bring it in, scale it down, something like that. And then you see in the end, of course, this will update and will be visible here. Okay, so far so good. Now this is the basic customization. If you like the versions that I showed you in the preview video, then this is it. You can already export your video and you are done. If you want to set up your own style, if you want to change the background, if you want to change the colors, then I will show you how to do this now. So let's take a look at the options that we have here. So first of all, we will move to another panel, and I want to move to the Essential Graphics tab here. If it's not open in your layout, you can find it in Windows. You see it's right here, Essential Graphics. And here we have three different options. The audio reaction option, you can open this, and then you see a bunch of values where you can set up the audio reaction. So let's take a look. First of all, I want to go back to my half resolution here. And you see there's the Boombox scale reaction. I will go through this a little bit quicker because otherwise it's very long. So the Boombox scale reaction controls the scaling of the boombox, and it reacts to the low frequencies. So if the low frequency value is high, then the boombox will scale up. If it's low, it will scale down. So this is set by default to 0.02. If you put this to a really high value, let's say maybe even 1 as a value, and then we take a look at this slider and move to a point where the value is high, you will see that the boombox now will get bigger and smaller right here. So this creates some kind of a bouncy animation, and actually I wanted to set it to 1, which doesn't work because probably the range is wrong. Yeah, okay, the range is. Let's increase this for a moment. And now set it to 1, because then it will become very obvious how this reaction works. You see now it will scale up quite a bit. Yeah, this is definitely too much, so you don't want to set it to 1. So let's set it back to 0.02, and I want to edit the range back to 0.1. That's fine. The wiggle frequency and the wiggle amplitude control how fast the boombox is dancing. You know that it is spinning around slightly, wiggling around, and this is determined by these two values. So the amplitude is actually the degrees in all the directions it can move. So it's set to 30 degrees. If you increase this maybe to 90 degrees, then of course these angles will get more intense, as you can see here. And I would not recommend to do that. So let's leave it at around 30. And the wiggle frequency, the higher you put this value, the faster this motion will get. So if you want to have it shaking around quite a bit, then you can increase this value, but usually it's fine if you leave it. The camera zoom reaction is more or less exactly the same as the boombox scale. So if you increase this value here to a value of maybe 1, then the zoom effect of the camera will be a bit more intense, and this also reacts to the low frequencies. So let's set this back to default value of 0.3. Then we have the background exposure reaction. This also reacts to the low frequencies, and this actually controls the exposure of the background. So if the low frequencies are high, then the background will get a little bit lighter. So this also creates a nice effect, and if you want to increase this effect, you can do that here. So if you set it to 0.5, then you will see it gets quite bright. So this was definitely too much, but the standard value here was, now I forgot it. Let's undo, let's see, 0.1, yeah. So the next two values are speed values, and the triangle text animation speed actually determines how fast the triangle text is moving along the triangle, and the background text animation speed is controlling how fast the background title is moving from left to right and from right to left. The next options that you have for the audio reaction is the color setup, and the color setup changes the color of the spectrums that we have on our boombox. And you see that we have 3 spectrums. We have the one up here, and we have two inside the speakers. And here we have 3 color controls. So let's change these and let's create another look. Maybe we want something more reddish and yellowish. So I can just change the colors here. And you see that this will then update here. And then there is this hue interpolation value. If you set this to 0, then the spectrum will be colorized only in the color that you chose. And if you set it to 360, then you will have this rainbow effect and you will get this rainbow look here, as you can see here. So I will set it to maybe -60 to get a bit of variation, but not too much. Okay, so let's say I like this, and I also want to reduce the interpolation on this one here to 60 maybe. Something like that. That looks quite nice. Okay, so the next options that we have are the Boombox Colors, and they now magically appeared because they were not there a few minutes before when I showed you these controls, and also magically my t-shirt changed. And this is just because I added this feature actually after I recorded the first part of the tutorial. So now I will present this feature to you. And the Boombox colors are pretty cool because now you can colorize the whole boombox. You can change all the colors of the 3D model. So let's take a look what we can do here. You see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 color panels here, color control panels, and these control the parts of our 3D model. So let's change the top part, and maybe we want to, let's say we want to create a bluish boombox, and this is a bit too bright, so I will just take out a bit of saturation and brightness here. So something like that maybe. Let's see. So that it's not too bright. Yeah, that's kind of nice. And now we can take over this color and we could start colorizing the boombox. Of course, we can take different colors. So let's mix it up a little bit, make it a bit interesting. And now maybe we take one of these. Actually, I wanted to make a yellowish and greenish layout, which I already forgot. But I will just mix some colors just that you see what this does. And now let's bring in this color again. Now let's bring in this color again. Now let's bring in this color again so that they repeat a little bit. And yeah, this is the speaker inner color. And we will make this a little bit darker. Actually, let's leave that on maybe black. And now the last one is the backside color that we cannot see right now. I will make this the same color as the top panel. But when we go to our rotation, then we will see this. And you see this is colorized too now. Okay. So you see that we can create very nice and colorful layouts. There are actually two parts that we have to colorize inside Element 3D directly, and this has to do with the limit of the count of custom layers, but this is technical, you don't have to care about that. But let me show you how you can change the color, for example, of this speaker panel and also of the handle. And therefore we just go to Element 3D, our layer here, and to the effect controls. And then we enter the scene setup. But before I do that, I want to grab actually the color values here, because let's say I want to make these, yeah, let's take this color for now and just copy this value, Control C. And then let's go to our effect controls panel and let's open up the scene setup. And inside the scene setup, we can then change the color of this material directly in Element 3D. So we can colorize the whole boombox. So let's go to the plastic matte material here, that's this one here, and let's change the diffuse color. And I will just copy the value that I had in here before and click OK, and you see that it already updated it here. So the next option that we have is the speaker outer color, and we can also change this here. And in this case, let's say we want to make this maybe something like that, so that it somehow matches my layout, something like that. And then also we have the handle. The handle here, we can also change this color, and let's say we want to make this a little bit purple. Okay, so now let's click OK, and you see this will update now, and now we created a fully colorized version of our boombox, and this is definitely a very funny option, and you can create really, really cool effects with these options. So now let's go back to our essential graphics and let's move on with the backgrounds. So the next options are the background controls. In the background controls, you can first of all choose the background. As you probably saw in the preview video, there are two backgrounds included in the template. So if we turn off the title background and turn on the 3D landscape, you see that this is kind of a nice retro background. And then we have the retro triangle background. That's also very nice. So depending what you want, you can choose it. For this example, I will go with the 3D landscape, and please make sure that you only turn on one of these backgrounds. So don't turn on two, because this can lead to some problems. The next option that we have is the triangle gradient, and this is controlling the gradient of this light triangle here in the background. Actually, if we change the color right here, you see not much is happening because, yeah, it's influencing it a little bit, but this triangle is set to add blend mode and also reacts to the lights. So it's a little bit, yeah, you can change the color, but it's not really necessary. Then we have the background colors, and these are actually quite cool. With these colors, you can control all of the three backgrounds. So let me demonstrate this on the triangle background, because this is very obvious on the triangle background. And I will solo this for a moment. So let's solo the background. Let's zoom out here. So you see we have the first bright color here, and we can change this. And as I said, I want to make something like yellowish orange. So let's go in here and choose a nice yellow, maybe something like that. Cool. Now our second bright color will be an orange. So let's go in here, something like that. Then the background should be dark. So we go to not quite black, but maybe, I don't know, let's say something like gray, like that. And then we have this other color, and you see this is controlling these few triangles here. So in this case, I want this to be a dark red, something like that. Okay. It's not the best layout, but just for the sake of demonstrating, it's okay. And now if we choose another background, so for example, if we turn off the triangle and choose the landscape, you will see that this also looks quite different now. So in this case, I think that the bright color is a little bit too bright because it glows quite a bit. So let's make this a little bit darker. This is probably a bit better for the 3D background. And you see, if I turn this just a little bit darker, then this looks a little bit better. So let's use it like that. And if you take a look at the title background here, you also see that it has an influence on this look as well. But for my example here, I will use the 3D landscape. So let's unsolo it, and let's take a look how our boombox looks. And you see immediately that now the reflections of on our boombox do not match the background anymore. They are still in these purple and white and bluish colors, and we of course want to change this too. So to change the reflections, we go to the next option here, which is the lighting and reflections option. And first of all, you see that we have the flare color. So you can change the flare color, and let's take over a color from our sun maybe, and maybe brighten it up a little bit. And this looks actually quite nice. So then you have the option to tint the environment, and tinting the environment makes sense if you set up a new color spectrum. So to make this work, first of all, let's enable the tint amount, or let's increase it to 100. This turns on the tinting. And now we can set up our colors. So the bright tint, I would use more or less a bright color from our background, something like that here. And the dark tint, I would use quite a dark color from our background, maybe this one here. And you see, by default, nothing happens. And this is a little bit of a problem from Element 3D. I wouldn't say it's a problem, but it's a little bit complicated workflow to make this work. On our Boombox layer, we go to the Effect Controls panel and then change the render settings here, the physical environment. You just change this to another layer, like the background layer. Wait until it's updated, and then you change it back to the environment layer. Change your indicator position, and you see now it updated. And now you see that this is blending in way more nicely with the colors of our background. So this way you can create really nice looks, no matter what your background colors are. So this is the background tinting. Now, the last options that you have here are related to the lighting. So you do not see any lights in this composition right now, but if I unhide all the layers, you see that we have quite a bunch of lights in this scene. And if we select all of these lights here, the light layers, and disable them, you will see that these really contribute to the look. So without these lights, the look is a little bit boring, as you can see here. But if I turn them on, then it looks quite nice and it pops quite nice. So you can of course now also customize the light colors here. And in my case, I would change all the bluish colors to a warmer color. So let's do that quickly. And let's see, I can choose this color here of the flare actually for the bluish colors. Maybe we make one that's a little bit more yellow or even a bit orange, something like that. And for the white ones, yeah, you can leave them if you want. You can of course also change these colors. And for the purple one, I would just use a reddish color here in this case. And with these settings, you see that now it blends in way nicer. And you see that we created a really cool look. So as a last step in this customization process, I probably would change the color of my triangle title. So let's select this layer and let's just choose a color that fits in a little bit better here. That's nice. And now the customization is done. Don't forget to turn off your high-low pass filter. So turn this off before you export your animation with the audio. And also don't forget to increase the render mode to full render before you export your audio animation. So this is it with this tutorial. I really hope that you like this audio visualizer and that you create really awesome track promotions with it. If you have any questions, then please feel free to contact me either through my website or through my VideoHive profile. So thank you very much for watching, and I really hope to see you soon. Goodbye.